Hello, good morning or good evening, Hope for Healing family. We are so excited to present today our Integrative Hope for Healing Women's Health event, Rise and Restore a Healing Revolution. Please, if you are a woman that would like to join, I put the link above in the post. We'd love for you to come in and join just to get to know you a little bit, as well as answer questions. We will have a Q&A at the end of each presentation. You don't want to miss this very important event. We've worked really hard. We have some incredible speakers for you. And I'm surrounded by these amazing women here with me that I'm so excited to do this presentation and for them to do their presentations for you. It's going to be a very powerful event. So please stay tuned. It is going to be throughout the day. But I want to introduce the hosts for today, which is Anne and Nikki. And I'm going to go ahead and have them start the presentations or start the introducing the first speaker, which is my wonderful, amazing friend, Lisa Haskin Pearson. She is the founder of Integrative Hope for Healing, and we're super excited to hear from her. Hi, Moj, welcome. So glad that you're here. But Anne, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and just kind of setting us off here for this event.
Okay. All right. So, well, my name is Ann Ziegenhorn, and she would like for Nikki and I to just do a brief introduction of ourselves in case you weren't aware, Nikki. We're going to do a brief introduction. So, I am a former plastic surgeon scrub tech, and I believed back in 1991 and 92 that breast implants were safe. And we were telling everybody that they were safe, and that the women who were talking about the Dow Corning days were just crazy, because that is what the industry told us to say. They came into the office, they explained how safe they were. I didn't have my implants at the time. I finally got breast implants. It was a free surgery for me. And that free surgery has turned into well over $1 million for me to try to get my life saved. I loved my implants. I thought they were the greatest thing on earth. I loved the way I looked, I felt, and I didn't go super big. So even though Baywatch was a big thing back in the day, I chose to stay fairly modest size. So I was only a C cup with my breast implants. I didn't do a D or double D. And I truly believed they were safe. We could throw them off the Empire State Building and they wouldn't break. Um, you can run them over with a car, nothing would happen. So I really, really, really was stuck in that little mode. Over the years, I started developing some strange symptoms that no doctor could really diagnose or pinpoint. I'd have CT scans because my vision was messing up. I had open wounds and sores on my body. And it was just some strange things. I miscarried multiple times. We weren't intentionally trying to get pregnant, but for some reason I kept getting pregnant even on birth control. And later I would learn that it was the disruption of the breast implants to my hormonal system. I had acne that wouldn't go away as an adult. They kept putting me on a whole bunch of different medicines. Everything was just not kosher, but again, not one time did I ever suspect my breast implants. So as we went through, and I had my two pregnancies that I was able to keep. I think in total I miscarried 7 times. And it was just one of those things where we just sat there just not knowing what was going on. I had CT scans in my brain. I would have doctors testing my blood, and they would say, no, everything looks fine. Testing my heart, because I would have heart palpitations that would go off rhythm. And then I just started getting sicker and sicker and sicker. They started to remove body parts and organs from me. So they had ablated my thyroid, which is they give you a radiation pill and it kills your thyroid and shrinks it down to little nubs. They took out one of my ovaries because I had cysts keep growing. They then took out my other ovary and uterus, and then they took out my gallbladder, and then they tried to give me a liver transplant. I saw 28 doctors in a 2-year span, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. Blood tests were inconclusive. I would have high liver enzymes, but nothing else. When they tried to get the liver transplant to me, they, at that point, I could no longer walk or talk. And my mother-in-law went with me and would translate. I could write on a whiteboard, and it would be this big, fat, thick Mickey Mouse style pen to write because I couldn't grip anything fine. I swelled up bigger than a balloon, and people couldn't even recognize me. And so then they told me I had about 2 weeks left to live. They couldn't figure it out. My body was shutting down. My body temperature, even though I was profusely sweating, they said it was 94.6 degrees. And they said, your body's shutting down. You need to get your affairs in orders, and there's nothing else we can do. At that point, I decided to just, well, I'd already been seeking God the whole time. It was always when something else was happening. But I was like, Lord, show me what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me. And the next morning I woke up and one of my breast implants ruptured right then and there. Like I felt the burst. I felt it go down through my body. And I was said to myself, oh my God, this is what's making me sick. I don't know what, why, how, but this is what's doing it. So I went and had a mammogram on, that was a Friday. They told me Thursday I was dying. Friday I ruptured. Monday I'd already had a scheduled mammogram because it was pre-booked like 2 weeks before. And you could see the rupture. And they confirmed, they said, we can see the rupture. And then the tech whispered to me, but we saw the leak 2 years ago. I thought, what? So my neighbor brought me back home. I shuffled over to my filing cabinet. I pulled out the report, and the report said normal. Couldn't believe it. So being that my brain worked just fine, I knew everything happening around me. And just like now, my brain functioned just the way it is now, but nobody knew it. My motor skill wasn't there. I had mold in my breast implants, a manufacturer faulty valve. I had textured breast implants, which caused the immune system cancer, to which I did find out I had the immune system cancer. It's called BIA, ALCL, breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. And I just was a hot mess. I had staph infection, MRSA, mold spores, aspergillus mold, and another mold spore in my body. And it was just seeping every time my breast implants were smushed or squished because of the faulty valve. And so that's what was making me sick the whole time. So Dr. Susan Kolb in Georgia removed my breast implants on an emergency. I went up there. They immediately got me into surgery, canceled their other cases. And 6.5 hours later, after pulling out the implants and the mold and I had 3 capsules, even though I'd only had 2 sets of implants. The surgeons didn't pull out my first set of capsules, just stuck the fresh ones in. And so I had 3 sets of capsules trying to grow in my body. So it took them several hours to reconstruct me. And I took many years of trying to get better. And I use photomodulation patches to help get better. And they detoxed me, and they've started to rebuild my stem cells. And it has, for me, started to regrow my thyroid. We have ultrasound evidence of it, as well as it detoxes heavy metals and other things out of your body. And I'm just constantly getting better and better. And in my opinion, looking younger and younger. So I'm here to help you and help others know that this is real. Breast implant illness is a real thing.
Oh, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It's such a powerful testimony that, that as women, we know what's going on we know that there's something going on, with our body, and that we need to listen. And you are the perfect example of that. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And Nikki, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your story as well, we would love to hear from you.
Well, I moved in 2006 is when I had my breast augmentation done. We would always heard how safe they were, and I had never even heard about the Dow Corning lawsuit or that there was any possibility for symptoms or anybody being called crazy at the time. I was told by I did everything they said, you know, the board plastic or the board certified plastic surgeon, under the muscle, the saline. The surgeon had explained to me that if anything happened, it was as safe as going to the hospital and getting a saline solution of, you know, an IV of saline solution, that there was no risk involved whatsoever. And I had even asked about pregnancies, and I was young still, and only had one child, and he stated that pregnancies were fine. That the only thing I may want to do was come back in for a lift afterwards. However, within the first 6 months of getting the implants, I had returned to the surgeon with a complaint that it felt as if something was attaching to the valve. And my board certified plastic surgeon, Dr. Christopher Kelly, told me that there was no valve in a saline implant. There's no valve. I know now that that was my capsule attaching to my valve. And I believe I also had a faulty valve because my implants also had mold in them. I believe my valve was faulty from the very beginning. I had no idea about any symptoms. I was never warned at all that there was a possibility of symptoms. Only if it ruptured, it would shrink down. My implants were Mentor Saline Smooth, 290 cc's, so they were not very big. I was only a C. I had them removed January 28th, 2020, after going to, like Ann, doctor after doctor, chasing your own tail down a rabbit hole with no answers and thousands of dollars spent. It got to the point where I stopped going to doctors. I was tired of being told that there was nothing wrong with me, that it was in my head to not stress and to not worry. However, my cognitive abilities were so fractured that I couldn't worry. I couldn't concentrate and remember to worry. It was just a life of pain, agony, confusion, and fear. And when I learned about breast implant illness, it was almost like somebody had ripped open this dark box of pain that I had been trapped in alone. And coming out of it, I see all these beautiful faces of you guys. And it was like, I didn't know you guys were on the other side. I didn't know. And I just kind of prepared to die, and I wanted to die. I wasn't living. I felt like a burden to my family. Um, it wasn't no way to live. And the pain was unbearable. I consider myself to be very strong. I've given birth naturally every time, but I could not handle this pain. I became basically bedridden, only barely to get up to go to the potty. And it was bad. And then after learning about breast implant illness and then learning what they do to our bodies and how these chemicals go through our bodies and how they have the ability to pass through the placenta and the umbilical cord and harm children. And that was the biggest, the hardest and the biggest thing to have to accept, and to I haven't overcame it, but to accept it, that I made a choice that harmed my children. Now my children both were born perfect births, hit milestones on time, beautiful, smart, intelligent. However, they have many symptoms like we have. Dental issues, vitamin deficiencies, migraines. My one daughter is 13. Since the age of 8, she's been walking in pain, which is really hard to watch. But with the hope of the Integrated Hope for Healing and with functional medicine, I know that there's a bright future for her. It was very scary to begin with because her future was uncertain. And but now I know that we're going to get some help, and we're going to lessen the effects that they could possibly suffer. And but yeah, I had no idea. I had no clue. I was told they were safe. Everything I always heard was always about silicone. You never heard anything about saline. I even tuned it out. I would hear, oh, breast implants, oh, but it's silicone. So I didn't even listen, didn't have a clue. And I would have never have been able to put the connection between my teeth decaying and my breast implants. How is that connected? That just didn't logically make sense on the surface, until you get into it, then it all makes complete sense. And but yeah, I was completely healthy. I was active, I was healthy, I was a cheerleader, I was on track, I was sociable, and breast implants took all that away, everything, and caused more lifelong issues that I never dreamt. All I wanted was to fit better in a bra. I didn't know, I had no clue that this was going to end up like this. I never would have dreamt that the day I got implants, that I would be here today. Never would have thought it. But yeah, that's
Wow.
it.
Nikki, thank you so much for sharing your story. I just want to let you know both Nikki and Ann have groups, advocacy groups. They are fighting for women who are suffering with breast implant illness. And I just really appreciate their advocacy work and what they're doing. And they are part of our nonprofit Integrative Hope for Healing. And this event, yes, we are going to talk some about, breast implant illness, but we also are focusing on women's health in general. Because we want women to be aware of, that yes, there is medical device harm, but also, environmental exposure. I know I'm going to turn the time over here very soon to Anne. She's going to introduce our first presenter, which I love and adore so much. My friend Lisa, she has gone through so much as well in her life, health issues, but not just breast implants. It's cancer and toxins and all the things that us women, we can be exposed to. And we are going to be presenting today about these subjects. So Anne, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Great. Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Haskin Pearson. And she's a BII warrior, and that means breast implant illness. So BII, when you hear us say BII, that's what it means. So she's a BII warrior as well as a cancer survivor. And despite removing her saline breast implants that were from Mentor, she had a cancerous tumor. And this was back in 2008. She spent years continuing to battle this unexplained symptoms that were with this disease. 15 years later, in February of 2023, Lisa's healing journey took an unexpected, shocking turn. During residual capsule removal performed by Dr. Khan of executive plastic surgery, she learned that the implant capsules she believed had been removed were actually still left behind. Not good. This fueled by faith, God is determined to ensure that women with BII never face this isolated and devastated illness alone. Lisa has founded this nonprofit, Integrative Hope for Healing. Her ultimate vision is to make functional medicine protocols accessible, mainstream, and starting in the US and expanding globally. She's determined to raise the awareness of breast implant illness and other adverse health effects that have I'm so sorry, guys, of leaving the implant capsule in the body. She offers hope to women and has become a beacon of strength. Lisa continues to expand and experience remarkable progress in her healing and health of integrative protocols. She recognizes that many women that are continuing to suffer. Her background as a hospital vice president and award-winning HR executive, Lisa leverages her expertise in data analysis to pave the way for future clinical trials, proven effectiveness of functional medicine. She is also working on a book, Joy, Healing God's Way. I love that title. She wants to share her insights of how she reclaimed her health through holistic methods. In her advocacy efforts, Lisa campaigns for breast implant illness to receive official ICD codes. It's the codes that we need for insurance to cover such a thing. She later has found through the measure of a 9.5 times 9.5 centimeter and 8.6 times 6.5 centimeter visible to images for many years. This was despite repeated concerns of feeling a mass in her chest. She had conviction that linked to her ongoing health struggle. She's now discovered the discovery ignited a profound passion for the change and commitment of addressing gaps where the caregivers and struggles of healing and traditional Western medicine have failed us. Lisa is on the verge of amazing things, and she also is wanting to host another study. And I am so happy and proud to present Lisa to you for her presentation.
Sounded much better than I am. I'm just kidding. I am so happy to be here today to kick off our Rise and Shine event. This is our first official event for Integrative Hope for Healing. But this idea was born after Dr. Khan took those capsules out of me, and the story of how the idea came to found the nonprofit is a dark, ugly story. And for all of you that don't have breast implants, you probably have people that you know that have them. But this isn't just about breast implants, because the dark, ugly story, complicated by money and power and greed, it is what we're going to talk about today with the chemicals and everything. We are all being affected by this. And the story I'm going to tell parallels breast implants, but it's not about breast implants. It's a story for all of us. And it's only 1/3 of the real story I want to tell, because the dark ugly is the brokenness of humanness, right? But this is a story of hope and healing. The women that you're introduced to on this board, Tara is going to talk later. You've met Cecily, Ann, and Nikki. Like, we all came to healing outside of Western traditional medicine because there weren't any options for us. We were told there is no such thing. It doesn't exist. You know, I got breast implants in 2004 to fill this void. I thought I needed to be more perfect. And there was never a perfect enough. And I knew right away when I put them in. I had pain under the left implant. I kept saying it's adhering to my chest wall. Something's going underneath my chest wall. And everything went from there. You know, I in 2008, I was already scheduled. Dr. Susan Kolb was going to take my implants out because I knew that they were making me sick. And less than a week before the surgery, that tumor appeared in my right breast. And, you know, I love Dr. Kolb. She got me started on functional medicine. She taught me. She's the one who said, take the chemicals out of everything, all the way back in 2008. But if she'd only told me she'd left the capsules in, she was the one who said they needed to be removed to heal. And in her defense, I almost bled out on the table. I lost 300 cc's of blood. The hematoma that appeared after the surgery, we now know is a sign of BIA-ALCL, but there was no such thing as BIA-ALCL then. So I walked around like a lunatic saying I feel a mass in my chest for 15 years. And things got really bad in March of 2017. A vascular surgeon decided he'd remove my top left rib for this condition called thoracic outlet. I told him the blood flow was being cut off to my arms by this mass in my chest. And I can tell you there's absolutely no way this very prominent surgeon on the medical board in Texas, making the videos nationally and internationally, there's no way he did not see the grapefruit-sized mass in my chest wall as he did that surgery. It was the very same month BIA-ALCL was announced by the FDA. And he saw it. He said nothing. He closed me up and sent me home. And so a year later, I went back to him because I felt the fluid building up and I felt an adhesion with blood vessels and nerves caught. And I was sitting there like a crazy person. This is February of 2018, right after a prayer I called the prayer that changed everything. I was telling him, I think this fluid is an arterial venous malformation. And he knew. He knew. I went to him the day before it burst. I went to the ER there and he started lies against me. That fluid burst the very next day, and the imaging done there at that same medical entity removed the tumor that was right there on my imaging after that fluid burst. And it was not a solid tumor. By the time I found it in July of that year, 5 months later, I was told my first cancer had returned. That is not possible. My cancer, invasive ductal carcinoma, is a solid tumor. My own records at the cancer entity show that it was a soft tissue lymph node they found, lymphoma. I was blackballed so thoroughly when I confronted them on this. They didn't even offer me chemo. I was walking around told that cancer I had, that on all markers was the most aggressive cancer you could possibly have. And nobody was helping me still. I felt like I was going insane, but God held my hand through it. And there's a doctor in Grapevine, Texas, Dr. Konstantin Katsanis from Greece. I had gone to him in 2012 when I had a systemic mycoplasma infection. I'm going to tell you how this happens because it's happening with plastics too, not just breast implants, y'all. But there's lots of women diagnosed with Lyme disease with breast implants, and it's because Lyme disease is the only disease you can test people for live systemic mycoplasma in your blood. I had seen this doctor as he cured me from sepsis and immunosuppression, the hallmarks of BIA, ALCL, healing cancer patients. So in 2018, I said, well, nobody else is going to help me and I'm probably going to die. And I went back to Dr. Katsanis, and that's where the story becomes beautiful. The rest of what has transpired continually as I've fought this battle is a horrific story. But I'm here to tell people, whether it's breast implant illness, whether it's cancer, whether it's autoimmune disease, whether it's chronic illnesses, that there is a way to heal. And the answers are not currently in traditional medicine. They're in functional, integrative, and holistic healing. People ask me, how did this happen? And so I'm going to start a PowerPoint presentation now, and we're going to start talking about how this happened. I'm going to tunnel through this. If y'all have questions, then please let me, whoops. I am trying to do this, but is this showing as a presentation? Or is it showing as a whole screen? Let me start this.
We can see your whole screen, but we can also see the presentation. But yeah, it's a whole
Okay.
screen.
Is it the presentation now?
It's still the whole screen.
Oh.
There
Is
we
it the
go.
presentation? Yeah.
Yep, we can see the presentation.
Okay, yay. All right, so we're going to tunnel through this, but we're doing this for free. If you feel like sharing this, it'll be shareable later. We'd love to add you to our email list. We've got a Facebook group. We'd love you to join, and we would love donations. I'll tell you how at the end. But how this all started, the ICD-11 code is how this happened. I was a vice president in medical, and the ICD is the International Classification of Diseases. We are currently using the ICD-10 in the United States, but the ICD-11 codes were proposed in 2019 and approved in January of 22. Without an ICD code for breast implant illness, doctors send us home and are 100% valid, telling us there is no such thing. It's gaslighting because there definitely is a such thing. The symptoms are universal. We know that they're there. But without an ICD code, they can't medically code, they can't submit for insurance. And we also, without an ICD code, can't do what we want to do. There is no research. There are no clinical trials. This drives registries. And in the current framework, there are no deaths from breast implant illness, even though we know they lead to cancers causing deaths. So the good thing about ICD-11 in the system we're currently on, you can't get insurance coverage to take these toxic bags killing us out of our body unless they're defective in some way. The only loophole is something called capsular contracture. So capsular contracture is when we've got the implants, and every implant, even saline, is in a silicone shell. A doctor in the Netherlands has shown us the silicone breaks down in minuscule amounts. It travels and lodges in our organs, our blood vessels, just like the plastics I'm going to show you. But our body builds a biofilm around this silicone full of mold and micro organisms and bacteria and mycoplasma. And then to wall off all of this battling our bodies, our body builds something called a capsule. A capsule is a skin-like tissue that covers that whole mess and tries to hold all the toxins and all the micro bad stuff, mycoplasma, fungi, mold, all that in. But soon these skin capsules get just as toxic as the implants because everything starts leaching into those. That was what was left in my body, were these capsules. If we want to get insurance cover, there's something called capsular contracture. And they say this is when the scar tissue starts tightening around the implant and could cause it to rupture. And that's the only way we can get insurance coverage now. By the way, anyone with implants, if imaging tells you you have scar tissue where they were, you have capsules in your body because that's what they call it, scar tissue. Even though they aren't going to tell you they're capsules. So ICD-11, they say that it'll take 4 to 5 years because there's been so many changes. But the cool thing is the tide is turning. In the new ICD-11, there's a brand new code for adverse incidents to plastic surgery related prosthetics. So devices put in our body, we have a bucket to put these illnesses in now. And that is where breast implant illness would go when we get it approved. There's also a brand new category titled diseases of the immune system. And there are over 5,500 brand new rare diseases that are given their own ICD codes for the first time. So these cancers we know are caused by breast implants. The lymphoma BIA-ALCL, the FDA announced it once it was given an ICD code. And this new cancer, squamous cell carcinoma, and all these other rare cancers they've admitted are caused by breast implants, have ICD codes, and that is how they can diagnose us with them now. So, this is from an article Anne was in. This isn't mine, but this is what happens. This is what happens in the body. The one on the left, the silicone has gel bleed, and that can travel through. And the silicone itself, because of the biofilm that forms around it, it starts eating away and degrading it. So that is how this stuff breaks down or oozes out. On the right is a saline implant. I had mold in mine too, just like Nikki. And the thing is, it's not really a faulty valve, though they tell you that, thank God, because then you can get insurance coverage, because then it's a defect. It is the biofilm covering and the capsule wrapping around that, and antibiotics in our body's immune system cannot get to that. So all of that works itself into the valve and gets inside the saline. Only saline have valves. Only saline get mold inside. They are not safer. They're coated with silicone. That shell is silicone for every single breast implant. It breaks down in your body and it can kill you. So, these are the capsules that were there in my body that Dr. Khan took out, that were there on my imaging, 9.5 by 9.5 centimeters on the left, 8 by 6.5 on the right. I was so outraged I had to do something. My now ex-husband did not like my activism. That's me holding my implant when I went live on Facebook in 21, right before he left me. He told everyone I was making up the masses in my chest for attention. I was making up the gastroparesis. I said I have one pain when I breathe in, another when I breathe out. The blood flow is being cut off to my abdomen and my stomach. It's not gastroparesis. It's this thing in my chest causing it. And after the implants capsules were taken out in 23, a vascular surgeon did Mal's surgery. Mal's, like thoracic outlet, is another impingement disorder. Mine was caused by migrated silicone. He had to strip a vinyl-like layer of what he'd never seen before off my celiac plexus to unblock it so my stomach could work again. So I healed from this, and I was determined to do something because we all share these illnesses. If we had an ICD code, we could start doing research showing we don't have a vague list of symptoms. We get MALS, we get thoracic outlet, we get autoimmune disease, we get cancers, we get hormonal issues, gut issues, gastroparesis. I had pseudotumor cerebri. My spinal fluid was crushing my brain at unprecedented amounts. Let's call it brain fog, right? Because that sounds better. And so all of these things, Epstein-Barr, immune system dysfunction, we all have them at very high rates. And all of this chronic illness is being caused by chemicals, not just breast implants. These chemicals are all around us. And I think, thank goodness, I am in this time right now where God placed me, where I've been saying since 2018, it's the chemicals and everything causing the rise in all of these chronic illnesses, whether diabetes, whether autoimmune, whether cancer, it's all the same thing. And I am so happy at RFK Jr. doing what we have been trying to do. I'm hopeful for real change. When I was traveling to Washington, D.C., I found that right there in George Washington University, the first integrative medicine clinic, right there in traditional Western medicine, they were doing the exact same infusions I was doing at my functional medicine clinic with cancer patients, diabetes, autoimmune. So the tide is turning, and I feel blessed to be living in this time. But you aren't seeing this information on the regular news, just like breast implants. Nobody in the media is really talking about this, and that is how they're getting away with it. These are just articles I pulled up putting this together, but you guys probably haven't read them because you aren't getting fed these like I am, right? These are showing that there are chemicals in everything in our environment. We know they're killing us. We know they're polluting our bodies. And this is a parallel to what is happening with breast implants. And so we need to make you aware so you can do something to help yourself, because we can't wait for the system to help us. This is affecting everyone in the United States today. Toxic chemicals don't belong in our body, but they're everywhere. They're in the food we eat, the soil that it grows in, the products we use, the dust on our floor, the air we breathe, cleaning products, clothes, packaging, tools, furniture, building products, beauty products, even toys, and they're in our pharmaceuticals. And so a lot of people think the government carefully reviews the safety of all of these things. You would think that, right? The FDA, that they're making sure they're safe before they put them in, but that is not the case. The safety of every chemical is not determined before they put them on the market. We have to put them on the market and then prove they're unsafe to take them off, which is absolutely ridiculous. 80,000 chemicals registered for use today have not been tested for safety by any government agency of any kind. 45% of high production volume chemicals are lacking in adequate toxicological studies. And we have no idea what the effect, we know what we know already about the ones we know, and that's bad enough because they're not banned yet. The scary part is, what do we not know in that 45% of high volume chemicals being put into all these products every day? And we don't know the effect they're having on humans and wildlife. Every year, 2,000 new chemicals are introduced at a rate of 7 new chemicals a day. And there is no oversight. These are affecting all of us. Just recently, we've started talking about chemicals of emergency concern, called CECs. Some people call them contaminants of emerging concern. And the reason they're so concerning is these chemicals are bioaccumulating in our body. Our body does not know how to get rid of them. They're also biocentrating throughout the food chain. So we're putting them back in our body. They're getting in our environment, and we can't eliminate them. We know what we know about the ones we know that are poisoning us, and they're still there and still being produced. And we don't even know what's coming down the road with the rest of them. The potential for severe effects is overwhelming. I'm going to lump these into 3 buckets today. And I know this is the dark, ugly side of the story, but we have to start here because these beautiful ladies are going to talk about the healing side, right? What we're going to talk about are microplastics and nanoplastics. These are tiny pieces of plastic that can be made from a wide variety of chemicals, ever changing as they keep putting more in as they get banned. We're going to talk about PFAs. If you've ever heard of forever chemicals, those are PFAs. They have an incredibly strong bond that forms between carbon and fluorine atoms. And that strong bond also makes them very hard to get rid of. And we're going to talk about endocrine disruptors. We have a speaker that'll talk about hormones, but these are affecting our hormones. Things called phthalates, which are chemicals added to plastics to make them more flexible. BPA, you might have heard about in plastic, and bisphenols, and the pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical waste. All of these are making toxic differences in us, our environment, and interacting in horrible ways. If we just talk about plastics, there's 16,000 known chemicals used in plastic products right now. We know 4,200 of those are highly hazardous to humans, animals, and the environment. We know this. Are they all banned? No, they're not. How do we know this and they're not banned? And that's, of those, 980 of them have been regulated. What that means, 3,600 chemicals we are putting in plastics that are poisoning us. And we know they're poisoning us because you've heard about plastics and microplastics and nanoplastics. 3,600 of those we haven't even studied. We don't even know. We're completely unaware of how hazardous those are going to be to us in the long run. And so 10,000 of these 16,000 chemicals has detailed hazard information missing. They might have stuck a sheet up there, but there have been no major studies. And that is horrific because, as I said, this is the process. This is the process for breast implants. This is the process for additives in our food. And this is the process for chemicals and plastics. We put them in, and then the science has to come back and prove they're unsafe before they're removed. And then what they do, like they do with breast implants, is they make one small change. They do a change to a small molecule in the chemical structure, and they say it's a brand new chemical now, and they put it back on the market in our plastics, and then we have to go back and prove it unsafe all over again. This is so broken. We cannot wait for the system to change this for us. We have to be aware and save ourselves. Tiny microplastics and nanoparticles have been intentionally added to our products. We have them in cosmetics, fertilizers, artificial turf. The European Union banned adding microplastics and nanoplastics to any products in 2023. So why haven't we? We have pulled them out of a few important ones, but they're still there in many products, and they break off, and even as the products degrade, the pieces break off. And so things like rubber tires, synthetic clothing, synthetic textiles, and the worst, plastic bags, plastic containers used for our food and drinks are causing 90% of all humans to have nanoplastics inside of their bodies. These are found now in our gastrointestinal tract, our lungs, our liver, our kidneys, the testicles of men. And disturbingly, the highest point of accumulation is our brain. The study just done last year said that the average person in the United States has nanoparticles comprising the size of a plastic eating utensil in every brain in the US. And they've done studies now that have shown that dementia has a direct correlation. People with dementia have been found to have higher concentrations of these plastics in their brain. So what can we do? 75% of the plastic found in the brain, which is, it's all dangerous, but let's focus on the brain fog, right? Because this is silicone too, y'all. 75% of the plastic found in the brain is something called polyethylene. And so this is most commonly used in plastic bottles, plastic bags, Ziploc bags, plastic utensils, plastic food containers, the baby bottles, the water bottles, the lids we put on our Starbucks cups, the straws we put in our drinks. If we were to stop doing that, we could really help our bodies and keep the polyethylene out, because that is 75%, and we're doing it unknowingly because nobody is warning us yet. Disturbing. Nikki talked about what we know breast implants are doing to babies, but just last year they did a study and they found microplastics in the human placenta, the same organ providing nutrients and oxygen to our developing children. Plastic pollution was higher in placentas of women with premature births. And horrifically, microplastics from plastic infant feeding bottles and bags were giving off plastics 2,600 times higher than what adults are consuming from their water, food, and air. We are literally, as RFK Jr. has been saying, poisoning our children without even knowing it. And if these parents are taking these polypropylene infant feeding objects and sterilizing them and putting them in the dishwasher, they are increasing the amount of plastics they're passing on to their kids. Most of us have heard that water bottles have bad plastic. We look for BPA free. We think we're being safe. But do you know that the average stick of chewing gum that we put in our mouth to freshen our breath, it is plastic too. It's releasing hundreds or thousands of microplastics into the saliva. And the average gum chewer is at risk of ingesting 30,000 microplastics a year from chewing gum. These microplastics are entering our groundwater and our tap water, not just water bottles, and we're allowing them back in our bodies in multiple ways. They have found microplastics in the meat that we're buying in the grocery store and putting back in our body. And no one is really talking about this unless you're on the news channels I'm on, but it's all right there. The research is there. We don't know what these are doing inside people because we've just started looking at it, thank God, last year. And the thing is, even the studies we're doing, it's hard because there's no one microplastic. These are all blends. They're mixed together and we're looking at one isolated one at a time. So we honestly have no idea of the chemical composition of these various plastics, and maybe that's intentional. But we do know that the studies they did with mice, they found that the mice bottled up the plastic in their immune cells and it piled up in their brain, blocking their brain vessels. But let's call it brain fog in mice, shall we? In studies of aquatic life, because all this plastic is going into our ocean, we're eating it in the fish, we're eating it in the animals. Plastic particles were found clogging their digestive systems, but let's call it gastroparesis. It was found in their reproductive systems. It was making them sterile. And in fact, in the first study last year of men with prostate cancer, they found microplastics in the prostate tumors and surrounding tissues. And they directly correlated the amount of microplastic in their tumors with the frequency of their takeout food consumption. So y'all just think about what we're just starting to learn, because this is not going to go away. Also just last year, they did a study and it was landmark. It said 60% of people undergoing heart surgery had micro or nanoplastics in a main artery. They were 4.5 times more likely to experience a heart attack, a stroke, or a death 3 years after their surgery than those whose arteries were plastic free. I have been telling everyone that I know breast implant illness travels in the vessels, and we know the silicone is traveling too, and it has the same deadly stuff in it as microplastics. But I'm not just talking silicone. We have to look at the real problem because we want functional medicine and integrative hope for healing to tackle the bigger issues one day. Last year, the barred power cord I had that had a purple mass develop in my blood vessel. This was just fixed in December of last year. And the barred power port was a new class action suit just last year. Lucky me, I had another medical device that I reacted to, had a purple lump. Nobody would help me. They wouldn't test it for cancer. Finally, the vascular surgeon that did the mouse took it out and they wouldn't send it for cytology despite a hemorrhagic 3-centimeter mass attached to it. And I had court attorneys take my case, but now they've dropped me. Because nobody told me what that purple mass was. So I can talk about it now, ha. I wasn't allowed to talk about it when I thought I had a case, but they basically told me the only cases they were taking for the Bard Power Port were cases focused on emboli and blood clots. They know those plastics and polyurethane coating the tube and silicone in the bowl is in our blood vessels, but nobody's talking about it. Larger plastics can pass through our body in the digestive system, but those nanoplastics can't get out of our body. And that is the case for functional medicine, y'all. Because functional medicine seeks to restore the body to health versus filling it with pharmaceuticals, which are doing just as much damage to us as plastics. These are chemicals that are treating a symptom, but they are not healing us. They're devastating our bodies. Just like the plastics, they're mixing and they have symbiotic effects when they join with everything else. Functional medicine is the answer to what is killing all of us. The rise in illness is due to toxic chemicals in our environment. Don't put pharmaceutical chemicals in. Restore the body to health by detoxing, removing the chemicals, and then combat the damage it's doing with natural supplements that we know restore our bodies to health. This is the only way to turn this tide around, y'all. There is no treatment in traditional Western medicine to remove microplastics in the body. We know they're in 90+ percent of all of us. They don't have answers for us, but you know who does? Functional medicine. It tells you you can chelate, you can get heavy metals and toxic stuff out of your body. This is the only way to heal. And why is it not available to the masses? Profit, greed, and corruption. That's why. If the particles are accumulating in the organs and causing inflammation and hormone dysfunction and metabolic disorders and cancers and immune system dysregulation, and they're disrupting, Cecily will talk about later, the mucus layer of the gut, which is a protective barrier. So these toxins are interacting with our gut bacteria. They're saying that's what's causing the colon cancer. The only way to fix that is to balance and restore the microbiome. That's how we combat the toxicity. If the microplastics in the environment, we know, in addition to what they're doing, they're making bacteria harder to kill. They say it's doctors overprescribing pharmaceuticals. The real truth? These microplastics are developing resistance to multiple antibiotics, just like the biofilm sticking stuff to the breast implants. E. coli and deadly stuff is sticking to the microplastics. Microplastics are developing biofilm. And in that biofilm, it's a breeding ground. These antibiotic resistant bacteria are growing and getting stronger. So the World Health Organization says that 5 million deaths worldwide are from infections caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Plastispheres are breeding grounds where microbes colonize, and they're a rising threat. So what we have to do, what we can do now, is restore our immune system so it's functioning in a vital way for health and wellness. We can't wait for them to fix it. These plastispheres are attracting, and these chemicals in the environment are accumulating and sticking to it, just like they do to our shell and the biofilm, right? They stick to it. So we have found microplastics have attracted in their biofilm toxic metals in our environment, pesticides, hydrocarbons called PAHs, which are deadly, PCBs, which are those chemicals in wildfire smoke, and many carcinogens, some of which have been banned a long time ago. We're finding it in the microplastics in our environment because guess what? They're forever chemicals. And they've been banned, but they're still there and they're in the microplastics. And so what we have to do to stay healthy is we have to detox. We have to chelate. We have to get this stuff out, and we can't just chelate. We have to use binders to grab it and pull it out of our body. We need the heavy metal and the bad toxins out of our body because that's essential to heal. When plastic products are discarded and become waste, they flow into rivers, they're in the ocean, they mix with heavy metals, they mix with endocrine disrupting chemicals, they mix with the pharmaceuticals that are running off. And this cocktail is then ingested by the animals in the ocean, the animals in our environment, and then we're turning around and we're eating them and putting them right back in our body. Like I always say, food is the foundation to functional medicine. So we have to understand how the food is affecting us in all the different ways for us to truly be restorative and heal. Functional holistic healing isn't just something I saw heal a lot of women with BII. It is what the world needs to heal. We're all dealing with a different flavor of the very same thing, unfortunately. So let's talk PFAs. PFAs are polyfluorinated alkyl substances, the forever chemicals. They rely on that strong bond I told you about. There's thousands of them. Teflon that we know is on the nonstick cookware is one of them, right? They use them because they're persistent, because they can withstand oil, grease, they repel water, they can be cooked on at very high temperatures. There's more than 4,700 PFAs accumulating in people in the environment right now. And once they're made, they are very difficult to destroy and get rid of. And that's why they're in our environment, our bodies, in our ocean, and the animals. And so they're made of paper, cardboard, cloth, and metal. They add PFAs to those. So they're waterproof, greaseproof. And just in February of this year, they banned PFAs on grease-proof food packaging. Those wrappers that we have on our burgers, the grease-proof cardboard that we're getting fast food in, not only is the fast food bad, those are full of PFAs. It's going to take June. They've got a little moratorium to get them all out, so we might see that changing. But also in April of last year, the Environmental Protection Agency finalized the first national drinking water standards specifically to protect us from PFA exposure. The Centers for Disease Control has already detected 99% of every American in the US, including newborn babies, have PFAs in their blood. And they have called it a public health disaster. There is no safe level of these. They are known to cause devastating illness at very small levels. They're also being used in our pesticides. They're being used to spray our products. Our farms are part of the explanation why scientists are scratching their heads and saying that we don't know where these PFAs in our drinking water are coming from. They're coming from runoff from the farms and the chemicals we're spraying on our food. And we all love our pets, but do you know that when you put flick and flea and tick, I said that backwards, repellent, when you pull that little cap off and put it right there on the back of your neck, you're poisoning your animal because there are PFAs in that and the bug spray that we spray in our homes. The limit to what PFAs are known to do to us is so vast. Now, keep in mind, ladies, these are the same chemicals and neurotoxins in breast implants, but this is a worldwide issue. It isn't just us, it's everyone. These are linked to kidney and thyroid cancer diseases. They're cancers, testicular cancer, cholesterol levels, metabolic changes, liver damage, kidney disease, damaged fetal development, obesity, thyroid disease, infertility, reduced vaccine effectiveness. If we were to take a list of all the symptoms of the chronic conditions killing us all, we could make a very strong argument that PFAs are involved. Traditional medicine will not tell you how to get PFAs out of your body because I'm not sure they're even acknowledging they're in our bodies yet. Endocrine disruptors. Some chemicals are known to interfere, and we have someone talking on hormones later and telling you how to fix this, just like Cecily will cover the gut microbiome, right? But exposure to endocrine disruptors are causing issues from developmental disorders, obesity, diabetes, infertility, developing babies, small children, and teenagers are especially vulnerable to endocrine disruptors. These are causing things like xenoestrogens, fake artificial estrogens, to be produced in our bodies. The most common one is that BPA that I told y'all about. It's a family called bisphenols. BPA or bisphenol A is the Teflon we've been taking off of our cookware. It's used also in water bottles, storage containers, computers, sports safety equipment, and lots of hard plastics and resins. And so we have likewise determined there's bisphenols present in the blood of almost every American already. They're affecting reproduction, metabolism, and behavior. They're changing the timing of puberty for young adolescents. They're increasing body fat. They're decreasing fertility, and they're affecting the nervous and the immune systems. They're also changing our genetic structure. They're changing our chromatin. They're changing our DNA methylation. They're changing our gene expression and our cell growth, causing breast cancer, prostate cancer, and diabetes. You might look for plastic bottles that say BPA free, because we've been told, like with breast implants, that's the bad one. This is the bad one. Make them BPA free. But don't use plastic bottles, because that doesn't mean they haven't taken a different BPA, changed the ingredient, put it right back in, and that's what they're doing. Even though it says BPA free, they have 5 different derivatives of this one that they banned already that are very much the same, that are probably poisoning us too, and they've gotten away with putting them back in until the study is done to ban those as well. So just know, plastics aren't good. We don't know what we don't know yet. Phthalates are substances that are added to plastics to make them more flexible and durable. So phthalates have also, they're not microplastics, but we found them adhered to our microplastics, like all that other toxic stuff. And they're in things like vinyl flooring, they're in lubricating oils, they're inside garden hoses, they're in shower curtains, they're in medical tubing, they're in cosmetics, soaps, shampoos, suntan lotion, and they're in some perfumes, especially ones that have musk scents. They've been added as solvents. They luckily recently took them out of toys, pacifiers, and baby bottles, but they were in those too for a while. But they are still authorized and in many of our food products that we're storing our food in. And that is one of the worst parts about the food and drink containers, is the phthalates. If we throw these away, if we open the Ziploc bag, they become airborne because they degrade. The small nanoparticles are in our air, and these are likewise in every person tested in the US. You know, pharmaceuticals and medical waste are also here. And this thing that they tell us in Western med is going to cure us is found in our drinking water, is sticking like the phthalates to the microplastics. And so there's just no end. We don't want to put them in our bodies. They're already in our environment. And the problem with all of these is the really horrifying thing, because we don't know what we don't know yet. And in addition to that, these chemicals of emerging concern have transgenerational effects. This means not only are they affecting us and our children and our unborn children, they are known to be affecting several generations down and changing our DNA as well. And so this issue is so complicated. We're studying one chemical, we're studying only the ones we know about, and we don't even know what we don't know yet. And we already know what we know is going to affect us several generations later. This madness has to stop. But what we have to do is stop it right now, because we can't wait for the system to do it for us. And the thing that I'm going to tell you that's going to give us some hope, because that's a dark, ugly presentation, y'all, I'm sorry, but you need to know the thing that's going to give us hope is the food as the foundation. The things that we're intentionally putting in our bodies is the biggest change that we can make. Robert F. K. Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again platform is very food focused. He says 2/3 of Americans are suffering from chronic health issues today. The diabetes, the neurologic issues, the cancer, the fatty liver, he says has two major culprits. And all that scary stuff I told you about, the toxic chemicals in our food, our medicine, and our environment, he says is the second and lesser of the evils. He says the first and worst is ultra processed foods that we are putting in our bodies intentionally. So just like with chemicals used in plastics, ingredients, manufacturers, and sponsors are putting in our food have loopholes. They are being introduced without notification to the public, even when they're toxic, and it's very hard to get them out once that happens. You know, ultra processed foods we've got unprocessed on the left. This is when I call it my God diet. When I really have to heal from cancer and what I've been going through, I go down to the basics. I only put in what God, the living things like fresh veggies and juices that I drink with living enzymes right after I juice them, or the meat or the eggs or the milk, the live living or came from something living and organic is what I call my God diet. But very few people can eat like that. Most food that we eat has some processing with regular ingredients like olive oil, butter, vinegar. There's something that's been done to them. But processed and ultra processed foods are where it becomes dangerous because the ultra processed foods are chock full of industrially modified ingredients and additives with all the chemicals that we know are bad already. They do things to this food that you couldn't even imagine could be done to food. You would think that a protein-rich cookie was good, or we would think that a fortified bread is healthier because it has vitamins, right? No, these things have been broken down and put through processes that put chemicals into it in the processes themselves, and they don't have to list that on the ingredients. So all you see is meat and cheese. You don't see what they've done to it in the laboratory. We don't know when we buy every wheat flour that wheat flour has been decomposed in horrible and complex ways before they constitute it back together and sell it to us. We think that must be healthy, right? Ultra processed foods are foods you cannot make in an ordinary kitchen. They have ingredients that are chemical, usually bad for us, and additives that are added to it and called food, and they're undergone processes that home kitchen cannot possibly replicate. So we've got artificial flavors, emulsifiers, foams, thickening agents, glazing agents, all these unnecessary ingredients because we think it looks better and it'll help sell. It's purely profit driven. It does nothing but hurt us. So if you're thinking a blueberry muffin prepackaged at the store and turkey bacon is healthy, right? Because this is how we've been ingrained to think. No, both of those are ultra processed foods. Eat organic Greek yogurt, make a fresh omelet, do a sweet potato hash that you make yourself. That is how you eat healthy, not with how the world is telling you to be heart healthy. All of the things that are limited fat or have the fat take out of them, all of these vegan, plant-based, frozen things made to taste like meat, they are all ultra processed, and people think they're eating healthy and they have no idea what they're doing to their bodies. So, you know, 60% of all adults are eating ultra processed and processed food. It's 60% of adult diet and 70% of children and teenage diet. We're poisoning ourselves. It has nothing of the things that we need, vitamins, enzymes, probiotics, things that should be coming on from our food, protein. So what can we do? Let's talk about the fun stuff, right? What we can do is we can buy BPA free, though we know there might be other things. Even better yet, ban all plastics. Don't use plastics at all. Ban food containers, ban plastic utensils, ban Ziploc bags. Do you know those black little containers they put sushi in have their own category? They're so dangerous. They have a chemical not in any other one. So limit that. If you're eating food that's takeout, restaurant, and fast food, it's chock full of additives, and some of these additives intentionally make you addictive. So you eat more. They've likened some of the additives to nicotine addiction. It's feeding obesity and killing us. So limit it. Limit the plastic lids and plastic straws at Starbucks. If you buy things in cans, bottle tops are lined with things that have BPA. The inside of veggie cans have it. Some cans and that we drink our drinks out of. If you use nonstick ware, try and get the green, or use stainless steel. Do not drink tap water or bottled water. What do we drink? I buy a special kind of water that I have on a big container, but there's a lot of reverse osmosis. You can buy carbon filters fairly cheaply. You can filter your own water, and that's getting a large majority of this out. Boiling has been known for 5 minutes to get microplastics out, but a carbon filter is probably a lot easier. And please, please buy organic whenever possible. I know it hurts the budget, but you only have one body, right? The last thing I'm going to say before I finish is make the right choices. I know I've spoken a long time. I hope I haven't gone over, but Yuka has a free app that you can download. You can scan the barcodes and it'll tell you those additives. If you make one change, get the Yuka app for your beauty products and your food. Scan it, because the spicy rancheroni, it has 20 additives. We know 6 are hazardous. We know 4 have limited risk. They say risk-free, but that just means we don't know what those chemicals are doing yet. We haven't studied them possibly, right? So if we buy the 4 cheese pizza, it has no additives at all. Just smarten the way that you do things to try to avoid this. And it's not easy. It's a lifestyle change, but we have to bring it out in the open. And that's all I've got. We would love donations. We'll be sharing this as much as we can later. And if I have time for questions, I'll answer them now. And if not, then I'll answer them later via email. Thank you.
Wow, Lisa, that was such an amazing presentation. And I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat as you were giving it. That was so incredible. We're a little bit over time, but that's okay. That was well worth it. That was so amazing. I learned some things, and I'm sure we all learned some things. This is so important for us as women to have this information, especially if we have families or children. We want to pass this down to generations, to our children, our grandchildren. So thank you so much for doing this. We are going to take a short little 5 to 10 minute break before our next presentation. Please stay tuned because we are going to have Dr. Sherilyn Garrett on. She's going to be talking about women's hormones. She is an expert at it. I've been to some of her master classes and she's amazing. So please hop back on. Like I said, we're going to take a short 5 to 10 minute break, but we will be right back. So please stay tuned and we will see you here in about 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.